Republicans are in very, very serious trouble in 2018, in this current year. I don't like using the word current year. I don't know why I said it, but this year, Republicans are in really deep shit. And it's just a whole lot of crap that Republicans have really messed up this entire year. Not only last year, but most of this year as well. I mean, Trump has been out of control a lot, and it's been pretty daggum hard for Republicans to actually kind of rein Trump in on certain issues because the dude runs his mouth. And in a lot of Democrats' eyes, a lot of people were actually seen defending Trump in it are actually, you know, they view them as not honest people. It's hard for you to really honestly gauge Trump when half the time a lot of Republicans just defend him in order to not get outcast, I guess. Yeah, in order to not get outcast by Trump, so that way they won't get primaried, which means they don't have the guts to actually do anything about any of the stuff Trump is saying. This is having a bad reaction with the American people. The American people are looking at it saying, dude, he's saying stuff that's blatantly wrong, but yet you're defending him over it? Like the whole deep state thing during the, like it was about towards the end of last year, they were talking about the whole deep state coup that was out to get Trump. There was no substantial evidence for that, but he went with it anyway, and then a whole bunch of Republicans actually defended him over it, and all that stuff about the bleep hole comments. I mean, it's just a lot of, which is really more of a he said she said situation. A lot of people were defending Trump on that, even if he said the obvious actual racist comment that why do we have people coming from shithole countries. Like there's certain ways I think you can defend that one, but if you're gonna take I mean, that one all depends on the context. But if you're gonna take that one to defend Trump, at least say you was talking about something like a merit based system for immigration. But this whole stuff with the FBI stuff like that, and just also about how freaking volatile his administration is. He's firing a bunch of people. He's really angry at a bunch of people in his administration, even people who were supporting him from day one, like Jeff Sessions, and doing more to damage his administration rather than really help it. And Trump's just in some major trouble when it comes to that regard. He's not running a real coherent presidency. Okay? Now, Obama's White House was pretty chaotic, but at least he tried to run it coherently. And yeah, he had a bunch of scandals, but Trump is just not handling things like Obama did. At least Obama had the charisma to really pull himself out of a situation. Trump doesn't. Like, and if Trump, if he's always jumping out like this, and he's always going on Twitter and saying the dumbest asinine things, sooner or later someone's gonna get pretty pissed at him, or some, or the American people is just gonna get so tired of it that they'll decide to say, hey, we don't want Trump in the White House next year. And there's a lot of evidence that suggests that Republicans may end up losing not only the Senate, but perhaps the House. Like a whole lot of these special elections that have been going on for the past couple of weeks. Well, not the past couple of weeks, ever since 2017, the Republicans have lost over 20 seats. Alright? And if Democrats win any more this year, Republicans will lose control of the House. So they barely have a majority in the Senate as it is. But they could, if they're not careful, they're going to lose control of the House. Because I don't remember how much the majority is. But it's not, well, it's a lot better than the Senate. The Democrats only need maybe 20 seats. And then they got it in the bag. All right, and also the whole special election that went down in Pennsylvania was a really big indicator, because about the future of Republicans Trump's America right now because, oh boy, that district that the Republican was running in. That was a 20 plus red district, and he ended up losing in a very close race. All right, like if you've been paying attention to any politics at all, you know that's very very difficult for a red area that has more than 20% of the has over 20% of the voters. It's gonna take something to turn those people off and to either not vote or to vote for the Democrat. All right, we also had this problem in, well, we'll use an example not many are using right now, the situation in Alabama last year where Roy Moore, the credibly accused child molester, lost even though he was in a majorly red area. He was already an unpopular candidate despite that stuff, or before that stuff was out there. And now you have a whole bunch of. And then when that came out, he lost almost all of his support instantly. And while some people in the Republican Party ended up coming to him because they were wanting to keep Judge Jones out of the office, oh boy, did a bunch of them regret ever defending Roy Moore because he ended up losing. There was pretty clear definitive evidence that Roy Moore was not innocent at any stretch of the imagination. Pretty definitive evidence. But Trump ended up backing him. Now, you could say, well, it was a last-ditch effort to keep a Democrat out of that office, which very well be true. But you can also do it honestly. You can't just say, oh, hey, I'm going to support him because I'm not going to support him at first because of the child molestation stuff, but when it comes towards the end of the run for that office, you're going to end up supporting him in the end because you just don't want a Democrat in office? No, that's incredibly dishonest. Alright, I'm telling you, the Sean Hannitys of the world were probably pretty upset when they found out Roy Moore lost, because a lot of people were actually gunning against Roy Moore because of the child molestation stuff. But then, a couple seconds later, they turn around and they say, you know what, that's okay. He may have done it, he may not have done it, but at least he's better than the Democrat, which shows just how deep the political partisanship has really gone into and how bad it needs to stop. That's also another major problem, is the political partisanship. If we can just get rid of the political partisanship, everything would be fine, but that's not what's going on here. Alright, but like I said, Trump's just in major trouble with the American public because he's not only running a chaotic administration, he also has so many troubles on the not only the legislative front, but on candidates that he's backing, that he's just not really up front. Top that off, he had pretty terrible last few weeks with all the Rob Porter stuff, and then the whole thing with the tariffs, which is a terrible idea, and everyone knows it. And then the whole stuff, and also the second major one probably out of the whole thing was this whole him turning into a New York lefty on guns, which thankfully he ended up getting off of, but still, I mean, Trump has just not been running everything well since mid-February. He's just had a really, really bad stretch. And you can see that in part and you can see that as evidence, you can see it through the whole staffing mix-up at the White House, because I mean, he lost Gary Cohn. He's on his way to losing Jeff Sessions. They just fired Andrew McCabe, even though he should have been fired anyway as interim FBI director. I mean, it's just not boding well for Republicans going into the 2018 midterms. It really isn't. I see no evidence that Republicans are really gaining in the polls. All right, and now you're probably going to say, well, the polls don't matter. Trump proved that wrong. You're forgetting about all that stuff that happened that led up to Trump's election. I mean, a lot of people were already going to the polls. The polls were rising for Trump steadily during the last few weeks of the election because so many people just did not want Hillary Clinton to be president. And there's pretty clear definitive evidence why. Hillary Clinton was a terrible candidate from the start. Right? The fact that she ran a corrupt campaign and even Bernie Sanders joined just so he can get a few dollars was proof that, that was proof that a lot of the American people just did not like the way the Democrats ran the DNC that year. And not only that, you had the FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton reopened, even though they busted her out, even though they had busted her out for anything in the summer of that year. Okay, so this whole thing about, well, the polls are always wrong. The polls are never always wrong, right? The polls were wrong when Truman was going up for re-election. He was going up for re-election. He was the incumbent. He was expected to leave. All of a sudden, the polls came out huge for him in that election year. Not that came out huge. The polls, while they came out really negative for him, he ended up winning huge in that election year. Right, that was a huge upset. That was one of the big upsets that really, made people, redirect everything they were doing in the polls. Like, they made people just change how they did polling. And I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of people are doing with the Trump era. And it's just not as clear cut as you think. I think Trump is really losing support here. All right, now he has a base. All right, and that base, well over 40%, maybe 40% of the country. But that base is not big enough to really go out and win elections. All right, and considering that if you even remotely say to Trump, "Hey, I don't want you campaigning for me in my district because I might get shellacked by my opponents," then you'll be ousted as not loyal, which is something Trump is very big on. Is loyalty to him, not necessarily to protect and defend the Constitution and stuff like that, but to actually just be loyal to him, which is pretty bad. But Trump is just not in the greatest of areas right now, and I mean, just a lot of people on the right have been really, really criticizing him for the last few weeks, and he will always be on the short stick of the left, because the left has always had a short stick of presidents who are of the differing political ideology. It's just, Trump really needs to get on his high horse. He needs to get in gear. Alright, now don't you care, I swear to God, if all of you Trumplicans on the web start yelling at me, "Well, you're just criticizing Trump because you don't like him." I want Trump to succeed. Don't you realize that? I have made plenty of videos, defending Trump, even though I was initially skeptical of him. Last year's policy was very good in terms of conservative policy, not only fiscally, but culturally. But Trump, this year, so far, has been running things like he's been running things like a damn handbasket stuck in a tornado. Like, he has not been doing particularly great conservative policies, considering that most of the time this year, he's actually been advocating for a lot of left-wing policies. And a lot of things that are not only very anti-economic, but also the anti-constitutional. Like, having murdered drug dealers. And while I would normally be okay with putting the drug dealers on the death penalty, but only if they actually sold super poisonous and dangerous drugs to a minor that ended up getting them murdered, that ended up getting them killed. Like, it only depends on situations. Alright, I don't want him to be a muerte. Alright, the left is conveniently glossing over that one. But he's been really being an anti-liberty here. And Trump just needs to be held accountable, which is a big problem, like I said, with Republicans, and that's why they're losing in the polls right now. Because Republicans have been way too adamant in their support of Donald Trump. And it's all motivated by fear, because they don't want to get primaried. And it's pretty bad. Like, the whole thing with the, how they were wanting to raise the debt ceiling. A lot of people who were normally very pro fiscal policy to actually fix the fiscal debt and stuff like that, they voted for the proposal to raise the debt ceiling, because one of the main reasons was, Trump wanted to have spend more. He wanted to spend more. Trump wanted to spend more. That was one of the things that he talked about, not only during his campaign, but also going up to that point. That was towards the end of the year. Alright, Trump is just, like I said, he just has not been handling his policy great. and and the staffing situation is so chaotic. I swear, not even John Kelly has been able to handle it greatly, and John Kelly has gone through some crazy shit of his own. Like Rob Porter, he defended that guy a bunch, even though that dude was known to have be a abuser. Like I mean, two of his wives divorced him, Rob Porter, because he was abusing them, physically abusing them. Alright, it's very hard to defend John Kelly over that, except if there was any evidence that he didn't know anything about that, which I have not seen much evidence for. Okay, now Trump really has to get in gear here. If he doesn't get in gear, he's putting the entire Republican Party at risk, and this is kind of what I was scared of from the beginning. That Trump was going to either be a Warren G. Harding or a Herbert Hoover. And it seems he's being more of a Herbert Hoover than he is a Warren G. Harding. While he has governed more like a Warren G. Harding, his volatility and his eagerness to pick fights with literally everyone that is being mean to him, I mean, it's not really helping conservatives that he is dragging their names into the mud like this, considering, and also the left is using the whole, well, you stand for this, but you're not holding Trump accountable just because he's with your party. Like, the whole thing about infidelity, which Trump has been a major infidelator. And a whole lot of Catholics and evangelical Christians actually defend the guy, even though most Christians agree that cheating is wrong. And it's just, there's this whole double standard when it comes to Trump with the whole media, and it's all motivated by the fact that the mainstream media has been going after Trump since before he was even elected, since he even announced that he was running for the Republican Party. And a bunch of people think, well, if you're going to go after Trump on that, then you're just against him, even though it's plainly idiotic. And it's just dragging the name of really good Republicans in the muck. And if you even try to remotely distance yourself from Trump, then you're screwed. Like, if you try to distance yourself from Trump, then Trump's gonna visibly get pissed off, and then he's gonna try to take you out politically by harming you where it counts the most in the voters. Alright, and especially in bigger district areas, that I mean, and I will also admit that a lot of the freaking a lot of the losses that Republicans have been losing lately has been from mainly Democrat districts that ended up getting won by Republicans in 2016, despite the fact that they were in very hostile territory when it came to political party affiliation. And a lot of the people there have been retiring. Actually, we had a couple people in Texas who have retired recently. Trey Gowdy's retiring after his term's up. And while we may have a bright spot in Senator Al Franken hopefully resigning because of his, pretty bad sexual misconduct, I don't see it happening because it's just because of all the stuff Trump's doing, alright? And that's pretty sad to say, but that's how it's going to go until somebody on the Republican Party starts making Trump govern like a president and stop treating him like a child. And that is Trump's major problem, is he acts too much like a child. And if he doesn't stop, we're screwed. Okay? I guarantee you. And honestly, the only saving grace that Republicans have right now is the incompetence and stupidity of the Democratic Party at this point. Every time Trump goes to one extreme, they go to a different extreme. Trump says shithole countries, the left says there are no shithole countries. Trump says we need to, I don't know, imprison or put drug dealers on the death penalty. Democrats say, oh, there's no bad drug dealers at all. Alright, it's just a whole lot of complete BS going on with Donald Trump, and it just needs to stop. And if it doesn't stop, conservatives and Republicans are going to lose pretty bad in not only 2018 but also in 2020. We may even end up losing the White House. Now, unless a Warren G. Harding happens, which is something I don't want to wish death on the guy. That's not what I'm trying to do here. If there was a Warren G. Harding that would happen though, dying before even his first term was up, maybe Mike Pence would govern a heck of a lot better, because by almost all evidence I've seen, Mike Pence govern a heck of a lot better than Donald Trump. He's actually acted more like a president. He's only the vice president and is not really a major player in the grand scheme of things. Now, if Donald Trump ends up getting impeached, or dare I say, ended up getting assassinated, that wouldn't be I'm not actually wishing for that. I hope you realize that. I don't, like I said, I want Trump to succeed, but he just needs to stop with his really crazy behavior. Alright, but I don't really see that happening, and Republicans are either going to have to kiss ass, or they're going to have to stand up to him. And they're going to have to come out in force to tell Trump, hey, you need to stop this, or we're going to get screwed. Alright, we were thinking, maybe midway through last year, that we were getting that type of change from Donald Trump, that he was actually starting to govern more like a president, but his actions within the first few months of this year has not been helping Donald Trump's name, and has not even been close to helping the names of any Republican that has stuck theirself to Trump's leg at any time during not only the election cycle last year, but also during Trump's first year as president. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you could at least understand what the hell I'm saying, because my fucking throat all of a sudden just hurts like fuck. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, and have a discussion in the comments about what you may think will happen in the 2018 midterms. Will Republicans lose the Senate and the House? Will Democrats reign supreme? Will they get, and even discuss 2020? Will Trump lose re-election? Will the Republicans actually elect someone different this time around? Will the Democrats continue to be crazy stupid, or will they actually learn from their mistakes? So, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Don't die.